I just finished watching the movie Sorry Baby, and I'm still a little bit emotional after watching it because it's one of those types of films. This movie, it really, at its core, it really provides a dark but real reason to stay alive. And we'll talk about that as we talk about this movie, especially the ending. But I want to just say, in general, speaking without giving spoilers, so that this movie, it's slow. It's not a fast movie. It's not a thriller. It's not a horror. It's like a movie that takes its time to build. So go into it knowing that it's a movie that has a message, and you really have to like pay attention, and you really have to be patient with this movie because it's not an easy story, but it's not also a movie that is like loud in the trauma in the terms of how it's shown on screen. Like there's no, don't expect anything traumatic. Like if you are a survivor, you will not be traumatized graphically by this movie, if you know what I mean. There isn't a scene that is like um that will make you really like that will put you in a panic mode, relieving anything that like just know that it's a movie that is done safely. It's a movie that is done with care. Um but it tackles serious issues and tackles heavy topics. So go into it knowing that it's a safe movie. It's a heavy movie though, or let me say it deals with heavy subjects. But through it all, there is a very real lesson to be learned in this movie, and it's a powerful film. I think that's all I can say without giving you spoilers, because every other information I think you can check out in the trailer or like the description of the movie. Um, but just know that it's a film. I think I said what I have to say about that. So check the movie out. And when you do, you can come back. This video is going to stay up, so you can come back and we'll talk about this, with spoilers, and then we can get into it after you watch it. So see you when you watch Sorry Baby. It's a really good film. Now, if you're here, that means you've watched Sorry Baby, and we can talk about spoilers. I just have the first note on my, because obviously I have my bingo card with me, but I had the first note that I wrote at the back, and I just said, "Why can't people just be decent? Why can't people just be decent?" You see, the character of Decker, he already had this girl's admiration. He was already a good teacher, a good mentor. She looked up to him. You already had her respect. You already had her adoration. Why wasn't that enough? And sometimes it's just a question that I want to ask to people who are predators, who are like, who do bad things, who assault people, especially people in positions of power where you're already revered, you're already respected. Like in this situation, this is her professor, and she already holds you in high esteem. You invited her to your home. She came because she trusted that she was safe with you. You were a safe space for this girl, and then you just took advantage of that. Why are people so crap? Like, why are they so? Why can't people just be decent? Like, that was the first thing that I just like wrote. And the most frustrating part about this world is just seeing a person just, just, just disappoint, just break the the statue that you had created of them in your mind because they couldn't keep it in their pants. It's so disgusting. It's so sad, and it's so just it's so upsetting that this keeps happening. The other part of the coin on this is that like you're watching the movie and it says that he's scared. She looks in his face and he's scared, and then he resigns and then he leaves. So you know the gravity of what you're doing. You know the consequences of these actions, and yet you still do it. Like, can't you control yourself? Like, I think that was my first big frustration with this movie. Was I just kept on going. Oh my god, can people keep it in their bloody pants? Like, nobody wants to see your ugh. Nobody wants to see your underwear, sir. I came here to learn. Like, ugh. So that was just the very, very first frustrating part of this movie. Was like, I just need people to keep it in their bloody pants because, ugh. Then, just again, reiterating that no means no. The bathroom scene, that was, obviously that was like the most harrowing. Like, and that was like the most harrowing scene in this movie in terms of that's where she really unpacks the emotional weight of what happened. And I was just listening and I was like, because there were so many moments, like why can't people just understand that no means no? And that is the sad part of predators, that you would think that I just have come to understand just through life that they don't think They are not, because I think I said to, I read somewhere, or I saw somewhere that someone said, you cannot say that they are inhuman because what they're doing is not unhuman, it's not inhuman, but it's inhumane. Because you have to remember that these are human beings doing this. That's another thing about this movie, is that you see that this is a human being. This is a man that he had a child, he had his ex-wife. He sounded like a safe space. And she said, even in the bathtub scene, he put on an animation, and then she remembers, oh yeah, he has a kid. It makes sense, that's watching an animation. So it seems like he's safe. It could be anybody. I think that's another thing that is so necessary to remember. But I think sometimes where the predator is now just start going is that, like, what is so sad is that they don't have that sense of, like, because she kept on saying, like, I removed his hand, and I thought if I remove his hand now, this next time he will get it. This next time he will know that, okay, I don't want this thing. But no, they don't, because predators are just seeking their own pleasure. They don't get it. And that is the sad reality, is that it doesn't dawn on them. And it's just one of those sad realities that you just, you're reminded, and I was reminded about while watching this movie. And then, just speaking of, again, things happening to, and how it can be anybody, the scene of, the house when she walks in, and then it's the afternoon, and then it just stays on the house, and then it's evening, and then it's the night time, and then, people are like walking across the house, like in front of the house. If that isn't just how it is, it's so wild how somewhere so on you can just go into a place on a street with people still walking outside, and nobody knows that inside that house somebody's life is being changed for the worse forever, just on a very quiet afternoon turned into evening. Through the span of hours, somebody's life has completely changed, and people are just walking outside. They don't know what is going on. The sun is sun is going away, the moon is coming up, not knowing that a person's life is being forever changed. Like, the way trauma really creeps in and just stays and just lingers is one of the ways that this movie is very powerful. And it's like one of the very big things about this movie. It's a very quiet movie. It wasn't loud at all. And you really had to, like, I really sat with this movie and I really felt the weight of it. Because the thing about it, and again, where it gets sad, is that it can really eat you up, and it can really start to bring questions of being alive. Like, what is the point? Like, the character here really starts to struggle with, like, you see that obviously she has ideations of suicide. She's thinking of ending it all, and because this horrible thing has happened. And where I think the movie shines the best, and the biggest lesson I really took from this movie, which is that the sad thing too about trauma, the sad but very, very true thing about trauma, is that it does give you a language that nobody else speaks, or that very few other people can speak. So even if it's from a very dark source, you now get this language that not many people can speak. And so the reason to stay alive sometimes, as she learns, right, when she's looking at the baby and she's giving the baby she's having that monologue, I guess dialogue, but the baby's, but she's having the monologue, and she's talking about how, which is the reality of life, is that the truth of the matter is that this baby could get hurt in the course of life. Life can get bad things can happen, hurt can happen. But the thing is, she now, because of the trauma, and not only because of it, but just, I guess, she has gone through trauma, and now she has a language that maybe she can access, which is, if this person goes through something too, she can listen and not judge in a way that maybe somebody who hasn't gone through trauma can. Because you see other people, like, you have the doctor in the beginning who, he understands it on a medical level. He understands it from a clinical level. This thing called trauma, this thing called sexual assault, to him is very clinical. It's very procedural. The women that, work in her office, they say, we are women, so we get it. But it doesn't seem, at least from the movie, it doesn't come across like they understand the emotional weight of it. It's almost like they're just trying to save face for the university, and it's almost like we have the solidarity because we are women, but they don't quite understand that language that she speaks. They don't understand that thing that has happened to her on a deep level. And so, because she has now gone through this thing, and she says to the baby at the end, I think I wrote it where she said, I don't know what the end of it where she said, but I can still listen and not be scared. So that's good, or that's something at least. Which is, sometimes that is all. You just, like, you, ju- sometimes you're staying alive for for how do I say this? Because again, the thing is that when you're in the throes of trauma or of sadness, it's very hard to think outside of ourselves. It's very hard to see, like, what's the point of it. Doesn't seem comforting to think that, like, I'm just living to help the next person. But there is a quiet comfort sometimes in that, or there is something that is a reason. It's a reason to stay alive. It's just a reason. That is it. Because sometimes people just need one reason. So people just need something to keep going. Like, what is the thing? Like, nothing else. And this can be a reason, which is sometimes maybe your story is needed so that the next person who unfortunately goes through the same thing that maybe you have gone through can now have a person that understands where they are coming from, and they can listen. They can have someone that will listen to them and understand it and not make them feel unheard, that will give them the tools that maybe helped them, that will give them maybe the support system that maybe helped them. For her, Lydie was really that for her in the for the character of Agnes in this movie. And we see in that last scene with the baby that like Agnes holds this baby and she really says, sorry, baby, essentially where the movie title, I guess, is kind of going from. Like you're going to go through hard things, but I guess you have me to be that listening ear, to be that for you. What Lydia was in many ways for her. So sometimes it's just about helping the next, because the sad and unfortunate reality of this world we live in is that bad things will happen. And it's not only sexual assault, it's many, like, it's bad things. And that's why I think I like that they kept on saying bad things, because it's not just, this is not just a movie about sexual assault. This is not just a movie about her own specific trauma that happened to her in this movie. It's about bad things as a whole, and the different bad things that happen and what to do with that sometimes, especially when you don't really feel like there's anything to do with it, because sometimes it just feels like, why did this happen, and there's no so it's just again a reason. I think that was a very powerful message that I took from this movie. It was very, very powerful for me. I moved. I really, really moved. Um, and it was a very powerful story. And very powerful message. The other thing that I wrote was, um, oh yeah, that there's definitely something to finding out that someone else willingly had sex with someone who abused you. Because when she finds out that the character of Natasha, who is, the girl who is very jealous of her, had, I was like, I just had that thought of like, yeah, like that is very weird to know that somebody else willingly put themselves in the situation that caused you so much trauma. And what do you do with that? How do you handle that? Because here across from her is this girl again who willingly, she's even saying, she says it proudly, she says it like, yeah, I mean, I did it, I effed him. What now? And for Agnes, this was trauma. Like her own experience with this man was so traumatic. But to just see somebody on the other side, like that must be so. And I don't know. It's a question that I was like, oh, I don't think I've ever thought about that in that, because this movie really posed that question, and I was like, yeah, that is kind of interesting. Where you're sat across from somebody else who willingly opted for the opted to have intercourse with the person who abused you. But of course, the Natasha didn't know what happened to her, so it's just very like, I understand the hyperventilating. Yeah, it's like that can be a lot to kind of process in real time. Um, I think overall, this movie really just did a good job of telling its story the way it wanted to tell its story in a very safe way, without being too loud, without it being like, they didn't need to show the abuse, they didn't need to show the graphicness of it. They also showed the complexities of it, because in when she's telling the bathtub story, there's another part of it I want to talk about, when she said that she kissed him because she thought, I think I wrote it here somewhere, yeah, she kissed him because she thought at least that's better than the fingers. And again, it's because again, when people go through trauma, it's very, it's a complicated thing that no many people are going to have their opinions about what a person should and shouldn't have done. That's another thing that I love that Lydie did, was that she validated her. Like there's a moment where Lydie said it's okay to lie about that. When Agnes says, I told him I was coming out of a situation or something like that, and then Lydie says it's okay to lie about that, because it's these are the little tools, just affirming people, telling people that like truly you can say what you need to say to get yourself out of a horrible situation, especially a situation like this. If you need to lie that you have a boyfriend, or you need to lie that some I'm coming out of something, you do what you have to do to get out of that situation. um and if sometimes, again, in the case of Agnes here, it was that she didn't want the finger, so she said maybe kissing would be the better way. You do what is best for you in that situation, and nobody else can tell you how to have handled your trauma. I think that's another very powerful thing that this movie really reminds us, is that everybody will have their opinions on what should and should not be done now. But until it happens to a person, nobody, until it happens to a person, that is only the person who has happened to that knows the situation that they were in and what tools were available to them in that moment. Nobody else can speak about what they think should have, how they think a victim should have approached something that they were not in the situation with the victim with. Um so that's just another thing that I learned from this movie. Affirm people. You know, listen. That's just another thing. Like Liddy was just very good at listening. Like, because sometimes it's really also tough being the person who is the friend or the loved one of a person who has gone through such trauma. And it's this question of what do I do in that situation? And listen, provide be a listening ear. If they want to get a cat, you say, well, what did Lady she said? She said, whatever you need. That was what Lady said. When Agnes said, I got a cat, it was simply whatever you need. That is what you just, sometimes that's all. You just need to be there. You just need to comfort. You just need to listen. This was a very beautiful movie. I've turned over to the bingo card section because I was obviously taking off stuff on the bingo card. I did have an LOL moment in this movie. It's where she said it's when she was looking at her lovers, I guess her love interest, the neighbor's penis, and she's going like, "Oh, I've never seen it look so soft. They are better," and she says, "They are better like this." I thought that line was funny. I LOL at that moment, so I ticked an LOL. That was my LOL moment in this movie. The quotable moment, I think, the quote that really got me was the ending one that I've already shared with you, and you know, they'll just it's whatever you need. That's another one, and it's okay to lie about things like that. It's okay to lie about that because sometimes you do what's best for you. I think those are some very good quotes from the movie for me, at least. Um, and yeah, overall, just looking at the bingo card to see if I had anything to talk about. Overall, this was a fantastic movie. It was a very well done film, and I really hope that the message isn't lost. I'm sure many people will find this movie boring. I'm sure many people will find this movie too slow. I'm sure many people will find this movie and they'll be like, "Oh my god, I don't really." Gosh, it was. But I'm happy that this movie did what it did and told the story that it told in the way that it wanted to tell it, because this story was quiet for a reason, and I think the message came across, at least for me. So big props to the makers of Sorry Baby. The message was passed loud and clear. This bingo card, if you want to play along, or for that person who you know is always on their phone, you want to give them an activity to do, at least so that they can focus on the movie or do an activity that's based on the movie you're both watching. Bingo cards are a very good option. That's why I started making them, because I have a particular friend that's always pressing the phone, and I was like, okay, let's really find a way. But I also just like bingo. So this bingo card is available on vdkfilmclub.substack.com, as all the other bingo cards are, and all my reviews are. Thank you so much for being here with me and for talking about this movie. I really hope you like this movie if you've watched it, and let me know in the comments if there's anything that I missed or how this movie also touched you or affected you. Um, I hope the next movie is lighter. Actually, I think it might be. I think I'm watching The Life of Chuck next, so watch out for that one, and I will hope to see you there. Bye.